Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I'm back again today doing another video, and the subject of today's video, we are talking about the Eastern Conference standings predictions that I've come up with for the 2020 to 2021 NBA season. I'm not attaching record predictions to this because it's 72 games instead of 82, and I didn't really want to do all the legwork of like the math of figuring out, okay, if a team wins 50 games in a regular 82 game season, what would that translate to in a 72 game season? So I'm just doing my standings predictions as far as the seeding goes, not the actual records. Have them up all on screen because I don't want to. I just want you guys to see them all at once, and we can go through them then, instead of me like going through them one at a time, and it's hard to remember what I said previously then. So here you go. These are all 15, and I'm just gonna go down. Or actually, I'm gonna start at the bottom and work my way up, and we will go from there. So the worst team in the East, I think, is going to be New York, which I actually think will probably be the worst team in the league. I think the Knicks don't really have anything going for them. They have their best player is Julius Randle, who puts up empty stats upon empty stats. And you could say, well, their actual best player is R.J. Barrett, but last year he had a pretty disappointing rookie year. And besides that, they have Mitchell Robinson, who is decent, but he only gets to play like 24 minutes a game because he can't help but averaging like 4 fouls a game. And I think if you adjust his numbers to like per 36, he's averaging like 5.5 fouls per game. So that's like their trio. That's their best trio right there. I don't like Frank Ntilikina. Dennis Smith Jr. I like, but he's been a massive disappointment. Kevin Knox is like an inefficient 10 points per game. Nerlens Noel and Austin Rivers are guys who should be the eighth man on a contender, not potential starters on any given team. Austin Rivers could arguably be like the second or third leading scorer on this team, which is terrifying. Besides that, that's really the squad right there. Is like those 8 guys I went through, and that is not a very promising squad. People are really high on this rookie named Emmanuel Quickly. I honestly don't know much about him, so I can't really comment on him. But I think like best case scenario, he puts up like 12 points, 5 assists a game, and is efficient, and is like an okay starter. Alfred Payton's also still on, or maybe he got cut by the Knicks. I don't remember, but either way, if he's still with them, I don't trust him at all. He's like the definition of not what you want for an NBA point guard anymore. He is like inefficient, not really a scorer. His distribution is like average at best. So yeah, I don't think this team has anything going for them. Next, I have Detroit at 14. And I think they'll be better than the Knicks because they have more of those kind of vet quality players, like how the Knicks had Rivers and Noel. Um, Detroit signed a lot of dudes who seem like they'll be decent. Like Plumlee is pretty decent, maybe not for a starter, but he's pretty decent as a backup, even though he probably will start. Leo Okafor is a good backup center, or at least good enough. Jeremy Grant is pretty decent for a starter, even though he's looked awful in the preseason. If Blake comes back and is healthy, this team will be a little bit higher, but I think he will be not healthy, so I have him this low. Derrick Rose is still going to put up good numbers on offense and not do anything on defense. They traded away Langston Galloway, who was going to be like their starting point guard. They traded away Luke Kennard, or he's going to be the starting shooting guard. Kennard was like their starting shooting guard, and they traded him away for what felt like nothing. I don't really care much for Sekou Doumbouya or Mikhailou, or I don't know if Thon Maker's still on the roster or not, but if he is, I don't trust him. Basically, the reason I have them higher than the Knicks is I like a healthy Blake Griffin better than I like Randle. I like Derrick Rose better than R.J. Barrett right now, just for this season, and I like the combination of like Okafor, Plumlee, and Grant better than Noel, Rivers, and Mitchell right now. So I have them higher. Cleveland at 13. The starting lineup actually looks pretty solid if everybody's healthy and if Kevin Porter can recover from whatever legal trouble he's in. But the starting lineup of Garland, Sexton, Porter, Love, and Drummond, that ain't bad, honestly. And the bench is pretty mediocre. You've basically got Larry Nance and Cedi Osman, and I don't even know much else what's on their bench. Maybe Dellavedova's still there, I think. But the reason I'm putting them higher is because I just like their starting lineup quite a bit, and I think that they'll be actually healthy compared to Detroit, which will battle injury issues. Chicago at 12. You know, Chicago and Charlotte are probably going to, these next three I feel like are going to be very contested, like Orlando, Charlotte, Chicago. Here's why I have Chicago the lowest. Last year they were below both of these two teams, and although Orlando got a little bit worse, Charlotte got better, and they were already better last year record-wise than Chicago, so I have them higher still. And Orlando's been higher than Chicago the last 2 years, like significantly. Like Chicago's been, I think last year the 12 seed, and Orlando was the 8 last year, and then maybe the year before that, Chicago was still like the 12 seed, and Orlando was the 7 seed. So I still think Orlando's a little bit better. I think Vucevic is still just as good as LaVine, if not better, and I guess it ultimately comes down to everybody on Chicago feels like they'd be the fourth best player on a contender. Like Zach LaVine feels like he'd be the fourth best player on a contender. Markkanen feels like a dude who'd be like a fringe starter on any contender or like a good sixth man. Same thing with like Otto Porter, same sort of thing. And then they have Thad Young, I believe now, and they have Wendell Carter, who seems promising, but still like 2 or 3 years away from tapping into what he can really be. Satoransky's a decent stopgate for a point guard. I think they'll actually start Coby White over him though, and I think Coby White will be decent. I don't think he'll be like an all-star like a lot of Chicago people think though. A lot of people are saying like, oh, Coby White's like gonna put up his when he hits his prime, he'll be like 24 efficient points a game and like a good distributor, and I just think he's more in the line of like career like good for 14 or 15 points off the bench, and I think he'll be a little bit more like the Sacramento Kings version of Isaiah Thomas, where like he won't really play any defense, but he'll come in and give you on any given night he could give you like 20 points, but that's really all he'll be good for, but nothing else. So that's my take on him. Or kind of like this Colin Sexton type, like where he's good at scoring but does nothing else for the team. Next, Charlotte. I like the addition of Gordon Hayward in the present. Long term, I don't really know what this does for them. It kind of just makes them slightly better than bad. And LaMelo Ball is pretty good value for what this team was last year. They were supposed to get like the 9th or 8th pick in the draft, and they got 3rd, so that's good value. And honestly, a death lineup of Rozier, Graham, Melo, Hayward, and PJ Washington sounds super fun. Really bad on defense, but really fun on offense. And I don't think they'll be great. I think they'll be 11, but I think this will be the most fun bad team to watch in the NBA. Next, I have Orlando. Aaron Gordon, Vucevic, Evan Fournier, Markelle Fultz. This is still a core that will win a decent number of games in an East where they can beat up on teams like New York, Detroit, Cleveland, Chicago. Like, they're going to get plenty of wins against those guys, and based on basically that alone, I think I'm putting them this high because I just think they're better than the teams below them, and Vucevic to me is very underrated. He's like a very efficient 20 and 12 every single night, and he can shoot threes pretty well. And Aaron Gordon and Fournier are very average starters, but average starters are better than what some of these teams below them have. Next, I have Atlanta. They added a lot of firepower, but I think they'll still be really bad on defense. And, they have a lot of depth too, but I think they almost have too much depth. Like, basically here, I'm going to list off all the dudes that are going to want minutes. Usually you want about an 8-man rotation, and here's all the dudes that they have who want minutes. Young, Herder, Bogdanovich, Gallinari, Okongwe, Capella, Collins, Hunter, Reddish, I think Rondo, and Dunn. That's like 11 dudes, and you really want more like 8 who are going to want time. But to me, I'm like, why do you have both Dunn and Rondo, and why did you... I don't know, just a lot of questions. It's like almost they'd be an ideal place to trade for James Harden if they could ship out like Collins and um, something like Collins and Bogdanovich and Hunter or something like that. But either way, they'll be good offensively, really fun to watch, but terrible defensively. Reason I have Washington higher at 8, I think that Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal is a great duo, and they have really decent supporting pieces, and I just think that the two at the top that they have are better than Trae Young and whoever you're telling me his best partner is. I think that like right now, Westbrook and um, actually, let's see here. I think that Bradley Beal and Trae Young are basically the same, like in the same ilk, and I think that Russell Westbrook would be better than anybody else on Atlanta. And again, I think that Washington will be better defensively. Like Russ at times can be a good defender. Thomas Bryant will be decent defensively. Same with Robin Lopez, who they brought in. Um, Troy Brown, average on defense. Bertans will be bad on defense, but they can bring in. They'll have Hachimura, who will be okay. Um, so yeah, Indiana at 7. You know, people have them like not even in the playoffs, but let's look here. They have Oladipo going to be healthier. They're going to have Jeremy Lin, who was supposed to be their sixth man last year, and he missed the whole season. He's back. You also have, let's see here, you still have the core of Sabonis and Bogdanovich and Warren and the Holiday brothers who were there last year, who are still going to be there. So you're basically adding like Jeremy Lin and Miles Turner, I forgot. You're basically adding a healthier Oladipo and Jeremy Lin to a team that last year was the 5 seed, or the 4 seed actually. So I don't get why people think that they're going to drop out of the playoffs, but I have them still at the 7. Miami at the 6. I think this was a team that their motto this offseason was, we're not doing anything because we're saving money for next year. I think the top of the East got a lot better, and I think Miami didn't do anything really, and if anything actually got worse because they basically traded Mo Harkless. They traded Jay Crowder, who had a really good end of the year last year, for Mo Harkless, who I absolutely hate overall as a player. He does everything okay and nothing good, which is never a good attribute to me. And they brought in Avery Bradley, which was a decent addition, but I don't think enough to move the needle considering he's going to be playing behind Hero, Butler, Nunn, and Dragic, so I don't see that much time for him on the court. And honestly, yeah, it felt like they rested on their laurels in an East where a lot of teams push to get better. And this could definitely change if they like acquire Harden or something, but I just have them here for now. Toronto next, who I actually think also got quite a bit worse, losing Ibaka and Gasol, but I still have them higher than Miami because they feel like a team that works really hard to win in the regular season, whereas Miami feels more like a team that takes it easy in the regular season and pushes to just do well in the postseason. So for that reason, I have Toronto here. They got worse, but so I think they got worse in the sense that like they'll do worse in the playoffs, but in the regular season, I feel like they'll still be solid with a lot of bench players who try really hard, like Norman Powell, Chris Boucher. If Terrence Davis comes back from the issues he's having, he'll play a lot of minutes, but still kind of their core of Lowry, Van Vliet, Powell, Anunoby, Siakam, and Baines. That'll still be good enough for a decent playoff team. At 4, I have Boston. I only have them this low because I think that the Kemba injury early on will hurt them in the standings quite a bit. And I think that basically trading Hayward for Tristan Thompson and for Jeff Teague wasn't great value. So I think that they're going to hurt a lot from that loss. And it's like here's the thing. They have Robert Williams, Tice, Thompson, all there to play center and power forward, I guess. But do you really trust any of them to be like the starter on a team that gets to like the Eastern Conference Finals or the Finals? Like maybe Thompson, but even he's like aging and a little bit past what his prime was of being a super springy jumper who can get you 10 to 12 rebounds in a playoff game. So I don't know. I think that Boston should use that trade. They have like a player cap hold basically kind of thing where they can trade for any player up to $28 million based on Hayward leaving them. And so if I were them, what I would do is I would try and get something out of that. So, DeRozan or Aldridge, either of those dudes, one makes 25, one makes 26, I would just flip a first rounder to San Antonio and say, give me either one, I don't care. And I think that would help this team quite a bit because their depth is bad after the starting lineup, and they could use like one more key dude to replace Hayward to at least be the same team as last year, or at least close. Brooklyn, deepest team in the East. I think Durant will be relatively healthy based on the preseason play we've seen. And I think they're just going to be really solid, but again, because Durant's coming back slow and Kyrie's coming off of an injury, they'll take it a little bit easier in the regular season, so they'll be the 3. Philly, I think, is going to have a great regular season. They're going to try hard to prove people wrong. I think Embiid and Simmons will be healthy. I think Green and Curry fit a lot better than Horford did, and Richardson by extension. They're both better shooters than those guys. It'll be interesting if they trade for Harden, but for right now, I still think even as is, this team will be really good and really trying to prove people wrong. And a better coach in Rivers, a better front office that can make more nimble moves. So yeah, and the bench is pretty decent with Dwight Howard, Shake Milton, and I guess the other non-starter would be Thibault then. So yeah, it's a decent bench. And number 1, Milwaukee, kind of like Toronto, they're going to try super hard in the regular season to win a ton of games like before, I think, and so they'll end up with the 1 seed. I actually think this is the second year in a row where I actually think this team got slightly worse on the roster. Like their depth is still not good, but starting lineup is still really good, and they'll win a ton of games still. So that's all I have for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know your thoughts below in the comments, and I will see you next time. Bye.